So even though I'm a longtime Apple iPhone supporter, it's recently been brought to my attention that Android phones no longer suck. Not at all, actually. Android phones are the furthest thing from suck. Android phones are now anti-suck. What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, BMac. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, or if you're subscribed to this channel, or if you know me personally, you know I've been a long-time Apple iPhone supporter. I've had an iPhone ever since the iPhone 4 came out, so basically forever. And I sincerely love this phone. I think the iPhone keeps getting better and better, better than it has ever been before with each new model release. So needless to say, I'm an Apple fanboy more than I have ever been before in my entire life, but here's the thing. There is so much that goes into creating a legitimately good and impressive smartphone these days. The market is so competitive that you really gotta up the bar, up the game in order to have something that you could consider impressive. You gotta worry about value, design, hardware, durability, the camera, notches, the screen itself, sexiness. Sexiness is important. And how to bring all that together into one neat, nice little package. Nowadays, with all the different tech out there, it's probably important not to let myself get totally sucked under the undertow of the Apple ecosystem. And Lord knows I am sucked into that ecosystem, baby. Everything I look around, everything I have is Apple. iMac, iPhone, iPad, MacBook, Apple TV, HomePod. But you see, I don't want to, nor should I, be all Apple everything. I mean, I could just stick with Apple and just review Apple-only products, but you know what they say, the little bird that never leaves the nest never gets to see the rest of the world. Actually, that might not even be an idiom. I don't know if that's a saying. I think I made that up on the spot, but what the hell, it works. So today I'm gonna answer a question. Today I'm gonna answer the question I get asked by you guys all the time, BMac, are you ever going to switch over to Android? And the answer is pretty simple. Will I ever switch over to Android with the way things are going? No. Well, maybe, yes. Kinda, not really. No, it depends. Hear me out. I've thought a lot about this lately when it comes to actually switching to Android, and when I do so, there are three things in particular that come to mind. First, and one of the most important to me, the camera. Android smartphone cameras these days are pretty darn impressive. Time and time again with the new Android smartphones that are being released, I'm seeing the photos that those cameras are capable of, and I am consistently blown away. I mean, the camera on the iPhone XS Max is by no means bad, but when you put it side by side to some of the Samsung and Google smartphones that are out there now, that's when the details really become apparent. That's when you see the beauty in some of these Android smartphone cameras. I mean, that Google Pixel night mode? Jeez, man. I mean, the cameras themselves are almost single-handedly making me want to consider maybe looking outside the box. Is that a saying? Look outside the box? Think outside the box and maybe consider some other Android smartphone options. Now, I'm a very classic photography process kind of guy. As you guys know, a huge part of this channel is filmmaking and photography. So I actually like to look at the raw photo taking capabilities of our smartphones, but with the computational technology and processing that's built into the cameras these days in our smartphones, it's probably a good idea to look at the stock camera app and see what those results are. So personally, I would actually love to put the other Android smartphone cameras to the test against the iPhone. I think it would be pretty fun to conduct some tests, do some sample photos, and kind of try to crown the king of the smartphone cameras, or at least until the next best one comes out. So the Android smartphone cameras alone are worth checking out. But next up, another top selling point of smartphones these days, value. I mean, your smartphone's gotta have some value. Now, I know there are some people out there that think it is absolutely ridiculous that I'm carrying around $1,000+ phone in my pocket. And I know there are some people out there that think I should be locked up for doing so without any kind of case on this thing. But when it comes to value, what you actually get out of a smartphone considering how much you paid for it, the reviews I've seen here on YouTube and some of the tweets I've seen on Twitter from some of my Twitter friends suggest that the value you get out of some of these Android smartphones is just insanely good. I mean, I haven't personally tried any Google Pixel phones yet. I don't think I've even touched one in my life. I've only seen them and admired them from afar, but I gotta say, just looking at the tech specs and seeing the reviews of that device, considering what it's selling for, that looks like a pretty darn good value. And that's not exclusive to just the Pixel either. There are some Android phones that really go a long way for what you're paying for. I mean, you could really stretch out your dollar with some of these Android smartphones on the market. And that's my way of stretching out a dollar. It's an invisible dollar because I don't carry cash with me anymore. But since I always want to provide you guys with the highest quality and valuable content possible, because I want to do all that and pretty much be able to weigh all options, even though I'm super happy with the iPhone and would pretty much recommend it to anyone, there probably are some Android smartphone alternatives that are worth mentioning to you in case they're better for your needs and for your lifestyle. And if some of those Android smartphones will save you some money while still delivering you high value, those are some phones probably worth covering on this channel. So even though I was pretty much completely anti-Android in the past, and considering how expensive iPhones are now, I'm really starting to warm up to the fact that there might be some Android smartphones on the market that provide a little bit higher value for your needs than just immediately jumping to the iPhone. I want to be able to know what that value is and whether or not the iPhone or Android is right for you guys. But most importantly, and this is probably the deciding factor why I personally could never actually fully switch over to Android, for me, above all else, the number one most important thing is the OS and UI of whatever smartphone you're using. Listen, what got me sucked into Apple to begin with was how user-friendly the OS and user interface was of Apple's devices. When I got my first iPod, I was blown away how easy it was to actually add music onto a device and listen to it anywhere. And then when we got our first family MacBook back in like 2006, I was blown away how easy it was to use a computer. I think I made my first YouTube video in like an hour on that thing. That's how easy it was to use. So an operating system and user interface will always be at the heart of my purchase decisions when it comes to devices and tech products. And that, for me, is what would make switching to Android fully in the future so freaking hard, because I just don't think I could give up iOS. However, I don't know what that was. However, I consider myself to be a YouTuber for the people. And if being a YouTuber for the people means suffering through the intricacies and difficulties of learning a new OS on a smartphone, I shudder just thinking about it, having to use Android permanently. Even though the thought of that completely scares me, I probably would be willing to start to learn Android and figure out how it works to be able to create more valuable content for you guys. And in doing so, I could probably see the positives and negatives of Android versus the positives and negatives of iOS or iPhone. And I could therefore figure out what Android could do better and what iPhone could do better and compare those two things so that I could figure out the strengths and weaknesses of both and how we can make the different devices better. And already I could think right off the bat when it comes to OS and UI, even though I like the OS and UI and user-friendliness of iOS better, I do think the customization, the level of multitasking, and the file management systems that I know Androids are known for, just taking those things into consideration means I probably should pay a little bit more attention to Android smartphones so that I can more effectively and more intelligently compare Android versus iPhone and be able to compare and contrast the two to essentially become a smartphone genius. A wise man once said, "Expand thy horizons." And that wise man was me. So Google, Samsung, OnePlus, BlackBerry, LG, any of you guys that have an Android OS on your smartphones, if you wanna, hit me up and have me test out, try, and review your smartphones, you know how to reach me. It would be an absolute pleasure to be able to get to know Android better and see these other smartphones that are on the market that I personally really haven't had any first-hand experience with, so that I can become more educated. And at the end of the day, because I'll probably still be rocking my Apple iPhone as my main day-to-day smartphone, at the end of the day, hopefully then I'll be able to know what Apple could do better or what Android could do that Apple can't. What about you guys? What are your thoughts on the whole iOS or Apple versus Android battle? Do you have a particular Android smartphone that you think kills every iPhone on the market, or do you think iPhone still kills every Android phone on the market? Leave your thoughts down below, letting me know. And in the meantime, I want to keep drooling over these photos that some of these Android smartphone cameras are capable of. I mean, the camera on this thing, the one I'm looking at right now, these photos are nuts, man. Absolutely nuts. I'll see you guys in my next video. See, there it was.